personal for me, actually.
Yeah.
Because in last April there, I suffered a minor stroke, and I thought that crazy to get back on stage, and I have done it.
What if the Susan Boyle you remember isn't the Susan Boyle today? 16 years after shocking the world on Britain's Got Talent, Susan Boyle has re-emerged, and fans can barely recognize her. The transformation is so striking, it's sparking questions no one saw coming. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. The same woman who once left Simon Cowell speechless.
She never wished to be famous. She wanted to be a singer, and she doesn't conform. She's just a normal person who thought this was her last opportunity.
Is now at the center of whispers that her rise to fame may not have ended the way we all believed. Some are even suggesting she was lifted up, only to be quietly left behind. And that's not all. Away from the spotlight, Susan has been making bold, unexpected moves, choices so unusual that they've slipped under the radar, adding a layer of mystery to her life that fans can't quite explain. This isn't just a comeback story. It's a complete rewrite of everything you thought you knew. Stay with me, because what's about to unfold might change how you see Susan Boyle forever. Everything changed in April 2022. More than 10 years after becoming a worldwide star, Susan Boyle was suddenly hit with one of the toughest challenges of her life, a stroke. At that time, her career had already slowed down from its early peak, but her voice was still at the center of everything she planned for the future. Then, in an instant, that foundation was shaken. The stroke didn't just affect her health, it directly impacted her ability to speak and sing, the two things that defined who she was long before fame found her. What she faced wasn't just a medical scare, it was a moment that could have stopped her career completely. In the weeks that followed, Susan stepped away from everything and focused fully on recovery. Her days became structured around therapy. She worked through carefully designed exercises to rebuild her speech, improve her breathing, and regain control of her voice. Simple things like talking clearly were no longer automatic. They had to be learned again, one step at a time. Singing was even more difficult. Holding a note, staying on pitch, and bringing back her vocal strength took longer to stabilize. Progress was slow, but she stayed committed. For months, Susan worked closely with specialists, focusing on restoring the basics before even thinking about returning to music. Her entire routine changed. Rest and healing became her top priority. The fast-paced life she once lived was replaced by quiet practice sessions and controlled routines. Success was no longer measured by album sales or sold-out tours. Instead, it came in small wins, clear words, steady breathing, and eventually singing full lines again. Because she stayed out of the public eye for so long, many people assumed she had retired, but that wasn't the truth. She was simply rebuilding herself. This period changed how she saw her career. Rather than chasing constant visibility, she chose to step back and protect her health first.
Concerns about your health, and they thought it was too much for you. Do you remember feeling?
At the time, I didn't have the tools to deal with it.
That decision marked a new chapter in her life. Then, in mid-2023, she surprised everyone. Susan returned to the stage of Britain's Got Talent, the very place where her journey began. But this wasn't about headlines or attention. It was something much deeper. It was proof. Standing there again, she revealed what she had been through and spoke openly about her recovery. Her message was simple but powerful. She had fought hard to get back. From that moment on, everything about her career changed. Every decision now goes through one filter, her health. Recording sessions only happen when she feels physically ready. Live performances are carefully chosen based on travel, duration, and how much energy they require. This new approach shows a different side of Susan Boyle, someone more grounded, more aware, someone who understands her limits after years in the spotlight. Instead of trying to meet expectations, she now protects her time, her energy, and her privacy. Every appearance is planned carefully with her well-being in mind. As her recovery continued, her lifestyle also changed. She stepped away from constant TV appearances and long international tours, choosing a calmer and more controlled way of living. Her return to music has been steady but intentional, guided by what she can truly handle, not by outside pressure. Health and balance now come before expansion. Even so, she hasn't disappeared. Updates have confirmed that she's been back in the studio, working on new music with a clear and structured plan. Alongside that, she occasionally attends selected events, but only when they fit into her routine. Rather than doing everything, she focuses on what matters long-term. Smaller performances and online connections have become her way of staying in touch with her audience. This shift shows a smarter, more sustainable way of managing her career. At home, Susan has kept things simple. She still lives in Scotland, in the same familiar environment that gives her comfort and stability. That consistency plays an important role in keeping her grounded, especially after everything she has been through. Her daily life follows a steady rhythm: rest, then work, then rest again. Even financially, she remains careful. Despite her past success, she hasn't changed her lifestyle drastically. She spends wisely and sticks to what she truly needs. In 2025, she quietly confirmed that new music projects were in progress. There was no big announcement, no dramatic comeback campaign, just a straightforward update. That alone says a lot about how she has changed. She no longer relies on massive media attention. Instead, she communicates directly with her fans in a simple and controlled way. It allows her to stay in touch without overwhelming herself. Beyond music, her earlier work still continues through official channels and products, showing that she hasn't stepped away completely. She's just moving at her own pace. Growth is no longer about speed, it's about stability. This balance between work and personal life didn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of adapting, especially after her life was suddenly turned upside down by fame. And to fully understand that journey, you have to go back to where it all began. Back in 2009, everything changed in a single moment. Before that, Susan lived a quiet life in Blackburn, Scotland. Her world was small: family, church, and local music. She loved to sing, but a professional career seemed out of reach. Still, she held on to that passion. Joining Britain's Got Talent wasn't luck. It was the result of years of believing in something bigger, even when the odds were against her. Then came the moment that changed everything. When she stepped onto that stage in April 2009 and sang I Dreamed a Dream, the world stopped and paid attention. Overnight, she went from unknown to unforgettable. Her performance didn't just win over the audience, it sparked a global reaction. Media outlets everywhere picked up her story. Opportunities followed quickly. Not long after the show, she signed a record deal and released her first album later that year, launching a career that would reach far beyond anything she had imagined. That album didn't just do well, it shot straight to the top of major charts, including the Billboard 200 in the United States. Within a short time, millions of copies were sold, placing her among the artists with the most successful debut albums in modern music. And it didn't stop there. Each new release helped grow her reputation even more, turning Susan Boyle into a powerful example of someone who rose from reality TV and built a lasting career in the music world. But behind the success, her life was changing fast. Moving from a quiet local lifestyle to a global stage wasn't easy. She had to adjust quickly, not just in her work, but in her personal life as well. The pressure was intense, especially for someone who started later than most and had never been trained for huge international performances. After Britain's Got Talent, the sudden attention from around the world took a toll on her mental health. The attention from around the world became overwhelming. To cope, she received treatment in specialized centers to help her adjust and regain stability. Even with these challenges, she continued to release albums over the next decade, and they were warmly received by fans across the globe. Her total sales reached tens of millions, firmly placing her among the artists come from talent shows. She performed in many countries, growing her audience in places like North America and Asia. Her journey proved that even a career that begins later in life can thrive with dedication and resilience. Despite her fame, Susan chose to live a quiet and private life. She stayed away from unnecessary public appearances and focused only on what truly mattered to her. This was her way of protecting her peace while handling the pressures of fame. She became careful with her choices, taking on projects that matched her strengths and long-term goals. This thoughtful approach helped her stay grounded. As her career became more stable, deeper questions about herself began to surface. Questions that had been hidden during the chaos of her early fame. This marked an important turning point. Her focus slowly shifted from just music to understanding herself better. After years in the spotlight, she began a personal journey to explore the psychological and neurological traits that had shaped her life. In 2012, she finally got answers. Susan Boyle was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a condition on the autism spectrum that affects communication and how information is processed. Sharing this publicly became a major moment in her life. The diagnosis didn't stop her career, but it changed how she saw her past. Things that once confused her, like communication struggles, sensitivity to her surroundings, and feeling different growing up, now made sense. With this new understanding, she started working in ways that suited her better. From preparing for performances to managing her schedule and working with others, everything became more structured and comfortable. This didn't limit her creativity, it actually helped her work more effectively. At the same time, she began reshaping her personal life. Early fame had shown her how difficult it was to keep up with such rapid change. Now, with greater self-awareness, she made adjustments to protect her well-being. She chose to keep her circle small, surrounding herself with people she trusted. Instead of constantly expanding her network, she focused on building strong, long-term relationships. Careful preparation before every appearance helped her stay confident and in control. Over time, she shifted her priorities. Instead of chasing bigger projects, she focused on stability and health. She reduced her workload and appeared only at selected events. She also stepped back from heavy media exposure, avoiding constant interviews and promotions. This new phase of her life was supported by a strong system around her, helping reduce stress and maintain balance. By the end of the decade, Susan Boyle was no longer just a surprising new star. She had become a respected artist who carved her own path. Her calm presence and independence were not accidental. They were built through years of adjustment, learning, and returning to the values she had always held. Long before fame, her life had already shaped her strengths. Growing up in Scotland, she faced many challenges that helped build her resilience. Born in 1961 in West Lothian, she was the youngest in a large working-class family. At birth, doctors believed she had suffered oxygen deprivation, which they said caused mild brain damage. This label followed her throughout her childhood and affected how others saw her abilities. For years, she believed those limitations herself. It lowered her expectations and made her accept the judgments placed on her. Her school environment didn't offer much support for children with special needs, which made things even harder. She often felt left out and was discouraged from pushing further in her education. But during those difficult years, music became her safe space. It allowed her to express herself freely without criticism. Singing in her church choir and taking part in local arts gave her structure and confidence when other parts of life felt uncertain. As an adult, she didn't follow a traditional academic path. Instead, she took short courses, including cooking classes and acting classes in Edinburgh. While these didn't lead directly to a career, they showed her determination to keep trying. Throughout the 1990s, she entered small competitions and auditions for TV shows, but success didn't come. Her efforts remained mostly unnoticed, with no major breakthroughs. In 1999, she recorded a song for a local charity project. It was only released in small numbers, but it proved she could perform in a studio setting. That moment strengthened her belief in her talent. Even so, the road ahead wasn't easy. She spent her own money creating demo tapes and sending them out, hoping for an opportunity, but the responses she received were never enough to launch her career. At least, not yet. Back in 2000, life took a heartbreaking turn for Susan and her family when one of her sisters passed away. The loss hit deeply, and she chose to step away from everything else, focusing instead on being there for her loved ones when they needed her most. As the early 2000s rolled on, her life slowed down to a quiet rhythm in her hometown. She didn't chase big stages or fame. She simply kept singing in small local spaces, holding on to the one thing that had always brought her peace. Then, in 2002, she made a quiet but powerful decision to return to vocal training. It wasn't in fancy studios or under the guidance of big industry names, but in modest local centers. Still, it showed something important. She wasn't giving up on herself. During those years, Susan stayed close to home, living with and caring for her mother. Her bond was strong, and her mother became her biggest source of strength. Even when opportunities seemed almost non-existent, she continued to remind Susan of her talent and pushed her to keep believing in her voice. That encouragement became the foundation that kept her dream alive. Her life at the time was far from glamorous. There were no flashing lights or tearing crowds, just a simple routine deeply rooted in her community and everyday responsibilities. But everything changed again in 2007 when her mother passed away from a long illness. The loss left a space in her life that couldn't be filled, and for the first time in years, Susan found herself standing at a crossroads. It was during this emotional turning point that a new idea began to shape: auditioning for Britain's Got Talent. This wasn't part of some carefully planned career move. It was something much deeper, a way to honor her mother's belief in her and fulfill a dream that had been quietly waiting for its moment. When she finally stepped into that audition room in 2008, she entered a world completely unlike anything she had known. The scale was bigger, the pressure was real, and the expectations were high. Yet she prepared in only the way she knew, on her own. In the comfort of her small town, she practiced a song she loved, without coaches or a team behind her, just determination and heart. Before the world knew her name, Susan Boyle was simply a quiet woman who had faced years of doubt, missed chances, and being underestimated. Her story didn't begin on a stage in 2009. It was built over decades of resilience, quiet effort, and unwavering belief. From a life shaped by challenges and misunderstandings to becoming a global sensation, her journey is far more than a viral moment. It's about persistence, emotional strength, and learning to navigate life both in and out of the spotlight. And maybe that's what makes her story so powerful. It reminds us that it's never too late, and sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come after the longest struggles. If her journey made you see things differently, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs that reminder today.